pen.
All right, let's get started.
Ready for me?
Yes, this
Good morning.
is the budget hearing for the Parks and Recreation Department.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Laurent, Shawnee County Parks and Recreation Department. We'll jump right in. The mission of Shawnee County Parks and Recreation Department is that we're an essential service established to improve the quality of life for all residents of the county by proactively responding to changing demographics and emerging trends while maximizing all available resources and providing quality parks, recreation facilities, and programs that enhance the residents' health, promotes economic vitality, and long-term sustainability now and for future generations. That is a very lengthy mission statement. I think we should try to shorten that at some point. Good stuff, though. I want to touch briefly before we get into this that we did adopt a master plan in 2014. The guiding principles of that master plan are: 1, to serve the relevant park and recreational needs of Topeka and Shawnee County residents; 2, to further position the county as a regional and statewide destination while making sure we protect access for our residents; 3, enhancing partnerships and funding opportunities. You heard some of that today with the foundation discussion. And then 4, leaving a positive legacy for current and future generations of the city of Topeka and Shawnee County. Accreditation. So I want to say briefly that although I was not part of that accreditation process, it is absolutely one of the reasons that I'm standing here today. I think that achieving accreditation changes the way that other agencies in your state and the country look at your department and the services that you provide. I know it did for me. Fewer than 2% of agencies nationwide are accredited. I know you've heard that before, but fewer than 2%. To me, it is a very big deal. And as it says here, it demonstrates that an agency complies with national standards of excellence and delivering the best services possible to the community. With that, I'll jump into our strategic plan, our 5-year strategic plan. It's broken down into a few sections. The first is land use management. Our goal is to maintain a high-quality, diverse, and balanced park and open space system, supporting healthy, active lifestyles for people of all ages. Please interrupt me at any time if you have questions. I'll run through this, and I'll try to leave a little time for questions and answers afterwards, just a little bit. Strategies to achieve those land use management goals will, number 1, upgrade aging amenities and add new improvements based on community expectations, national and departmental standards. 2, where possible, connect trail systems to community and regional parks. 3, we develop a master plan for Gage Park, making sure to include our partners at the zoo and the Discovery Center. Evaluate existing park inventory to determine each parcel's impact on the surrounding community, neighborhood. Lastly, protect and expand natural areas through acquisition, restoration, and conservation. Next section is facility management. We want to update our existing facilities when possible, add new facilities in underserved areas of the county to provide a balance of recreational opportunities for all residents of Shawnee County. How will we accomplish this? 1, we'll provide accessible indoor and outdoor spaces for people of all income levels, ethnicity, gender, ability, and age. 2, we'll develop an ADA transition plan for all Shawnee County Parks and Recreation facilities. Update our facility improvement plan for existing community centers, shelters, and aquatic facilities. 4, reinforce the department's commitment to public safety through park police visibility and public interaction. I think we've already started on that and several of these. 5, develop and implement a preventative maintenance program to prolong the life of our facilities, equipment, and other assets. Programs and services. We strive to develop and maintain a wide variety of quality programs and services for all ages, abilities, and interests. We want to continue to offer existing programs while working to increase offerings in program areas such as adaptive recreation, senior programming, and health and wellness. How will we do this? 1, we'll ensure programs meet current trends, changing demographics, and support accreditation standards. 2, improve our process of evaluating programs and services. 3, increase awareness of what we offer, the programs and services that we offer. 4, create partnerships and collaborate to expand offerings. And lastly, determine existing cost recovery levels so staff can make informed, financially responsible programming decisions. Professional development, really at the core, I think, of what we're doing. We want to try to retain, attract, and cultivate an effective, dynamic staff by fostering growth and development through training, education, and mentoring. We'll do this by increasing our training and professional development opportunities. We'll encourage staff to share innovative ideas and recognize each other for our contributions. We'll establish customer service standards and track customer satisfaction. Develop updated performance measures, moving our organization from an effort-based culture to an outcome-based culture. And 5, assess staffing levels based on workload, national standards, and community expectations. Fiscal stewardship. We want to employ the best practices aimed at keeping our department financially sustainable. Seek adequate funding to meet the community's expectations for providing parks, recreation facilities, and programs. Recreation facilities, programs, and services that make the county a desirable place to live, work, and visit. We'll do this by working within our annually adopted budget. We'll determine life cycles for facilities and equipment, schedule routine and annual maintenance, and work to secure adequate replacement funding. Establish principles and procedures to ensure the budget is fully and efficiently utilized throughout the fiscal year. Work with the Board of County Commissioners to determine an acceptable amount of tax support to maintain a county-wide system of parks, recreation facilities, and programs. And develop a pricing policy designed to help offset operational and capital costs while keeping the programs and services affordable for Shawnee County residents. That wraps up the strategic plan. I know there's no way you can read this organizational chart, and so I do just want to touch briefly on, if you see the blue area here, that is our Park Services Division. And that, Randy Luby back here is, oh, there he is. Randy is the director of the Park Services Division. That oversees our outdoor adventure, all of our youth and adult sports, our shelters, our recreation programming. Our park police are also in that division. Next, you have the Park Operations Division. That's Jeremy Myers is the director of Park Operations. He oversees all the golf operations, park maintenance, horticulture, and our natural areas, as well as the county weed department, all under Jeremy. Next, we have our Park Planning and Development Division. That is John Boyd, director of Park Planning and Development. John oversees our fleet management, basically everything that comes out, our fleet, our facility and construction maintenance, and also a lot of our tech type stuff, our Civic Rec, Civic Plus, Cartograph. All of that is managed out of this division, as well as all of our contracts and agreements. And then here you've got professional development, and that is Olivia Mayer, Superintendent Olivia Mayer. And our foundation position that we spoke about earlier today is in this division. Our communications person, Mike McLaughlin, is here. Our volunteer coordinator. Anything that we're doing to help develop staff and increase professionalism, a lot of that is coming from this division. And then last, but certainly not least, is Linda Kelly, our finance administrator. Linda's here. Linda has been crucial in this budget. She's been a crucial part of my transition into this position. And Linda oversees our purchasing, also our executive time, so payroll, that sort of stuff, and all of our administration clerks come out of that division. Also failed to mention that Olivia oversees is sort of our HR liaison to Angela Lewis. Olivia, backing up a step, helps us with all of our HR stuff. So that's a brief overview of the department. With that, I want to jump right into the budget. I tried to summarize some things that I thought might be of interest. Absolutely willing to answer any questions about the entire budget, but here are a few highlights. First and foremost, you'll see up here that the budget request that we submitted for 2020 reflects a 1.5 increase over our existing 2019 budget. Here's some of the line items that have increased. Fees for services. In my mind, this is sort of a cost of doing business line. When you're doing more background checks and having more credit card fees, that means we're having more volunteers. Our youth sports leagues are growing significantly, so we're having a lot of extra coaches, a lot of extra staff that need to take background checks. Credit card fees, same thing, sort of the cost of doing business. When we're enrolling more people in programs, reserving more facilities, selling more concessions, unfortunately, our credit card fees will go up. So we hate to see the budget getting bigger, but this is actually a sign that things are moving in the right direction. Contractual services, trade service providers. So we came up to the commission in May, I believe, and asked to extend and expand on our mowing contracts, and that is part of that increase. Equipment leases, same story. We came up in June, I believe, and asked to lease several pieces of equipment for park operations division and golf. That is not the entire amount, but that is part of that increase. And then step increases down at the bottom for our classified and union employees. Again, that's the cost of doing business, but it's nice to be able to recognize, as Jeremy mentioned earlier, the hard work of our staff and, being able to give them a modest increase in pay is much appreciated. So on the flip side, here are some line items with significant decreases. Our workman's comp insurance, so as I understand it, Parks and Recreation is one of a few departments that pays an additional workman's comp based on some of the work we do. And it's my understanding that has decreased this year because, frankly, we've been operating in a safe manner. We haven't had any accidents, knock on wood, and so that additional fee has reduced. Employee retirement reimbursement. Last year we had to put in some additional money to make sure we had money to pay for retirements. This year there was no additional funding needed. Actually a decrease in that line. We can still cover any retirements that would take place this year. Electricity. So this one is very interesting. Electricity costs have decreased. This is partially due to the addition of LED lighting in many of our facilities. We're yet to see the benefits of what we did recently in Gage Park, where we replaced all the lights there. So not the only reason, but that's part of the reason. And then last, intermittent, temporary, and seasonal help. So this one was a little surprising to me, and looked at this several times, but this is based on our 2018 actuals. And also you're starting to see, I believe, some payoff on these mowing contracts. So we're hiring fewer seasonal staff during the summer that are out working in our parks because we've been able to contract a lot of that work out. It's also due to some, I think, some very responsible scheduling by Dave Aliker. I don't think Dave's here today, but our aquatic supervisor has really put some time in trying to make sure that we're scheduling our aquatic facilities in a very efficient manner. Never, ever sacrificing safety. That's job one. But I think he's done a good job at reducing some costs there, not only with lifeguards, but concession operations and that type of thing. So that is essentially it on my budget highlights. I think the next slide moves into the CIP. I'd be happy to pause here if you've got some questions about the budget. Let's talk about any of that.
On the budget.
On this part?
No? Okay,
Okay?
continue.
All right, well, let's move into the capital improvement plan for 2020. So this slide is very, very similar to the one that you have in front of you, the information that you were given. I did add this section over here on the right just to show that a lot of these plans are tied to our master plan. I have some also included on here that were on your sheet that did, where we did point out some alternative funding sources. So, Gage Park accessible field resurfacing, we know that's an important project. If it's not part of the capital project, we've identified that we could pay for this with 3R funds. So I will touch on the ones here that don't have any funding, but if you have questions about any of these, please feel free to ask. ADA transition plan. So we want to develop an ADA transition plan. That, I realize, it jumped out as to me as a very pricey item for a plan, but that, I am being told that was based off a quote that we received, I think probably 2 years ago, so it could actually be higher now. But this is just the plan. So if this was approved and we were able to move forward with this, there would be implementation fees that would go on. I believe we've earmarked $500,000 each year for the next 4 years to try to follow the plan, implement the plan. So it is an important item. We're always constantly trying to move that direction. When we can make adjustments to make ourselves more ADA compliant, we absolutely do that. But there are a lot of areas that need addressed. Next item, Deer Creek Trail Project. As you know, this project is already in motion. This $496,500 is the 20% match that the county would owe to this project. That helps us try to reach our goal of 150 miles of trail, which I'm a trail guy. I really support that process.
And that
Yes.
is a over $2 million project,
It
isn't
is.
it?
It is. Yes.
Will hopefully connect to Lake Shawnee.
Ultimately, that's the goal. The Deer Creek Trail Project won't get us there, but it'll get us really close. So we'll have to figure out how we make that jump. If I'm correct, I think there's about a mile or so that's.
About a half mile
Yeah,
left
there you go.
after this
That's-
project, and it's easy going.
Yeah, so
we'll make it happen.
we're very excited about that, very excited.
Very good, thank you.
Family park improvements. So this one I want to touch briefly on as I said, I tried to tie each of these to our master plan. This making improvements to family park is outlined in our master plan. It's there's a recommendation there to look at turning family park into a regional park facility, a regional park. So it would be, in my mind, this on the same lines as Gage Park, Lake Shawnee. I'm going to jump forward just a second here, maybe. Oh. These guys know I worked on this morning and it wouldn't work, but I'm gonna fix that. If you'll bear with me for 1 second. Our map doesn't want to work, but I think this is important enough that we should look at it. Don't know what that's doing. So I will just go in here and try to pull this up. So I did put together, now we were able to get this information pretty quickly out of Cartograph. So I also want to do a plug for Cartograph. I think this is a great tool. But if you'll look here, here's our quadrants, 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can see that 7 of our 9 community centers are in quadrant 2. Not great. I mean, all these centers are important, and I support each and every one of them. But we've got one down here, Crestview, in quadrant 3. We've got the Paris Center down here in quadrant 4, Shawnee North way up top. But you can see on the west side of Topeka, there's not much. I mean, we love Crestview. It's a very busy place. It's a great asset. But we think there is room to build another facility on the west side of Topeka, and Family Park, we believe, is a good spot for it. Part of the Family Park project is not just to construct a center, a community center of some sort, but we're also looking at either refurbishing or replacing the clubhouse at Cypress Ridge, which, by the way, rounds at Cypress Ridge are up. I think the additions that we've made there have really made an impact. Also want to put in some walking trails, some additional pickleball courts. Pickleball gaining popularity, just not believe how many questions and comments we get about pickleball, very popular. So we think there's a real need to improve that area, and we think we could do some really good things at Family Park.
And
So-
we have over 60 acres that we own
That's
there.
correct.
So we wouldn't have to pay for any land.
Would not have to buy any land,
Okay.
so yes.
Very good.
Moving on, floating playground. This would be, in my mind, sort of the last piece of the Adventure Cove project. And I know Olivia Mayer was in Wichita this weekend. she's looking scared because I'm calling her, but I'm not putting you on the spot. But Olivia drove by a playground that Wichita has one of these, and they're just amazing. And I think it would really give the folks another reason to come down to Adventure Cove. I think it would be an excellent amenity, not just for the Cove, but for Lake Shawnee. And as a bonus, I think it would be quite a revenue producer. So something we'd like to do. Next, on the unfunded here, we've got park maintenance equipment replacement. I know you probably can't see these. I did these kind of as a note to myself, but we've got $400,000 earmarked for that, and we've put that in years 20, 22, and 24. So I know that we have, let me get back to my full screen here. Well, we'll do it down this way. Okay. We currently have, after we came up and leased some equipment, like I mentioned in June, by my calculation, and Brent Holsetter's here, and he may disagree with me, but I believe we're somewhere around 79 to 80 pieces of equipment now that are still meet the qualifications to be replaced under our fleet management plan. So this is something that, despite Brent's best efforts, they do an amazing job, as you saw on the mini train last week. When things break down, they take care of it. But as things get older, they're less fuel efficient, they're breaking down more often. So trying to gradually update and replace equipment, I think, is key to future success. And last, let's see, we go down here to, go down to shop consolidation. So that one is on this list because, as many of you know, we have a shop on Curtis Street. That's where Brent Holsetter's shop is, where we do our fleet maintenance. And we would like to get out of that shop sooner rather than later. I know that the city and other folks are wanting to do some redevelopment on the riverfront. We want to be part of that. We don't want to be the reason that's being held up. So we're looking for alternatives right now to where we can move Brent. I think we had I wasn't able to attend, but we had a meeting last week, and there were some thoughts that we may be able to even move Brent's operation to our golf shop at Lake Shawnee. So that might be an immediate fix. However, we put this on the list because I think the shop location at Lake Shawnee is valuable park property, and I hate to take it up with one of our shops, quite frankly. I'd like to open that up and have that be area that the citizens of Topeka and Shawnee County are able to enjoy. That may be a long-term goal. Gage Park, the same way. Gage Park is landlocked, and we've got our shop there. I'd like to try to find a place where we could consolidate in a more central location. I don't want to increase the drive time, the windshield time. We'll try to keep that to a minimum, but we're in the very beginning stages of talking about this, so, but we thought it was important to at least draw your attention to the fact that we think it's something that needs to be done. With that, I can move through the remaining the years. This doesn't want to move because that picture doesn't want to play nice. I have the rest of 21 through 24. Do you want to go through each one of those, or do you want to focus mainly on what we're talking about for 2020?
Which pleasure.
I don't mind going through some of them.
Okay, and there are a lot of repeats, to be honest with you. If you look at the ADA transition plan, one thing I would like to point out is Crestview Community Center. That's next on our list of facilities once we finish Hillcrest, and we're currently renovating at least the front entryway and the lobby of Hillcrest. We would like to turn our attention to Crestview. Dornwood Fields, Phase 2. Also something that needs to be completed. We've made a lot of strides at Dornwood, but there's a lot of work there left to be done. Gage Park Master Plan. Now, I know there's some history here, and that this almost happened at one point. We think it is worth looking at again. Possibly, you'll notice I've got a price tag of about $75,000 there. I have had some discussions with Commissioner Rippon, who was involved in the process, and him and I both feel like that seems like a reasonable reasonable amount for what could be our portion of that master plan. That's yet to be seen, but that's an estimate on our parts. Girls softball renovation, phase 2. I want to talk briefly about that, what we're doing there. I think that girls softball, new concessions, shade structures, restrooms. We believe that will, we mentioned earlier that Commissioner Cook mentioned earlier in a discussion that we were having that the girls softball complex, we have elevated it over the years. But I don't think it's quite to the level where it should be. And I think adding some of those amenities will not only enhance that complex, but it'll enhance our ability to generate revenue there. Guardrails and safety. Again, we have that listed every other year on this plan, and that's just maintaining and upgrading what we have. Crossover. We have had some preliminary meetings with Topeka Tennis Association. I've been involved with a lot of tennis associations over my time. The Topeka Tennis Association, and we want to renovate some bathrooms there. We also want to add another restroom that would be available not only for the folks using crossover, but also for the folks using the trail right behind there. So I think that would be a great amenity. Lake Shawnee dock replacements, again, that's just cyclical maintenance, something we have to do on a regular basis. Could be done probably out of 3R funds. A lot of these could be. Outdoor athletic court renovation, again, 3R funds quite possibly. Park renovations, and I think 5 to 8 every year. So I think this process was started the last couple of years. We would like to do more than 5 to 8 every year, to be honest, but you can see what we're talking about here from a price tag. Not only is it pricey, but it also takes time. And so we're in the process right now this year trying to do, quite frankly, a lot more than 5 to 8. And our goal is to get a lot of them done this year, and we're working hard to achieve that. But as a realistic goal, to do a complete renovation of a park, 5 to 8, is still, quite frankly, pretty aggressive. But that's not all we'll be doing. I mean, we're constantly evaluating parks, replacing playground equipment, fixing playground equipment, and not just playground equipment. You know, there's tree care, there's turf maintenance. There's a lot that goes into it. If I could pull up a cartograph right now, I could, but I don't want to take up a lot of time. The number of things in a park, if you pull up Gage Park, you're talking water fountains, sidewalks. There's a lot of things that go into this. It's not just one playground equipment, not just one item. Park system signage down here, that does appear every year. We have a new sign, a new logo, and I think simply putting a new sign in a park shows that we're doing something. And some of these signs have been around for a long time, and they do need replaced. I have worked with staff, and actually I've had a conversation with Joe the other day about trying to replace some of the signs on some of the busier streets so that people see, hey, look, they're getting things done. And I think that's a great idea. So we're working that way. And then restroom renovations for park and trail. $50,000 is what we have marked here. We're not going to renovate all of our restrooms for $50,000, but that's what we'll try to do on an annual basis, and we can do those with capital maintenance funds or 3R funds. Still on 2021, and I'll try to move a little quicker because I know we've got a lot to go through here, but there are a few I want to touch on. Road, parking lot resurfacing. We've got a big number in there, $1,500,000. Any way you look at it, we've got a lot of roads, we've got a lot of parking lots that we have to maintain. And it's a costly endeavor. So that's something we'll have to stay on top of. Putting it in a CIP list and being able to do a lot at one time would be beneficial. If we can't do that, then we'll start parceling it out, I guess. We'll start using other funds and doing smaller amounts as we go. Roof repair and replacement, I know this has been discussed quite a bit. We have $75,000 earmarked for that. We understand that that's not going to replace every roof in the system. It's just not. But for instance, we just got a quote to replace the roof at, was it Garfield or Oakland?
Well, that's to the Oakland.
Oakland. Yeah, $46,000 to replace not the roof over the gym, because it's in good shape, but the roof over the rest of the facility, $46,000. So that, that would take a big chunk of this, but we could probably still do a couple of shelters in that year. We are currently evaluating all of our roofs, not just community centers, but shelters and everything we own, and similar to what we did with HVAC systems, and we'll rank those based on the immediate need. We know right now a few that are in immediate need, and we have actually accomplished some of that this year already in some other roofs. So the rest of this, Rieger retaining wall, that's just a project. We've got the saloon at Old Prairie Town. We think that would be a great addition to Old Prairie Town. We think it would fit the motif. We think it would be a great revenue generator, not just at the saloon, but we think this would increase weddings, receptions, and that type of thing there. I know there's been discussion about parking and what would happen if we built out there, what would happen to parking. I met with John Bell out at Lake Shawnee this week, and he showed me a lot of information that he had about what would we do if we did parking. If we built, how would we adjust parking? And they've got some great ideas, and I think it could definitely make it work. Sidewalks and trails, $1 million. Hey, I know you're probably not going to give me $1 million for sidewalks and trails, but a guy can dream, right? I think that's what Betty told me. I think trails are so popular right now, and they make such an impact on the community that anything we can do to enhance our trail system, I am totally behind that. So, campground renovations, Helen Hawker Theater is going to need to be discussed at some point. We want to be good partners with the zoo. Right now, we're fine where we are, but I think we need to at least start having a conversation about the theater and what happens if ultimately we need to give up that space. Lake Shawnee Golf Course Clubhouse renovation. Again, that's a pricey number, but I think Lake Shawnee is so respected in this area as a golf course. And I messed up earlier and said Lawrence, but I'll give you some history when I was in Lawrence. Whenever somebody came to complain to us about Eagle Bend Golf Course, the first thing out of their mouth was, well, at Lake Shawnee. And so many times I wanted to say, well, just go play at Lake Shawnee. And now I say that again, yes, please play at Lake Shawnee. But it's a fabulous location, and really Cypress Ridge has really been elevated quite a bit too. So again, these another way to look at this, or these are parks that we actually charge people to come play in. And so they're revenue producers, and a renovated clubhouse at Lake Shawnee and Cypress Ridge would give us tremendous opportunities to generate more revenue. Splash pad at Oakland, that's replaced the pool, which is aging, needs to be looked at. And again, we get to park maintenance replacement, which we've already talked about. I'll run through here real quick and see if there's anything that's different. Riverfront Park Development, that is, we've got that at 2022. We don't know what's going to happen there, whether we're going to be developing that, whether that'll be a private entity developing that. I've heard both things. We'll reassess this as that gets closer. HVAC replacement.
You think in the interest of time, we should stop here and move on to the rest of the...
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything on here. Mini train replacement. I don't think there's anything major that we're going to miss. Like I said, Central Park renovation, that would be after Crestview. And then that gives us to the weed department. But I can do the weed department presentation now, or we can go through CIP, or how would you like to proceed?
It's a pleasure, Commissioners.
I'd rather just do it now.
Yeah.
Weed department fairly short. the Shawnee County is comprised of 348,800 acres and 75,672 different parcels of rural, urban, and industrial areas. So it's big. The department's primary role is to enforce the Kansas noxious weed law and the nuisance weed and tall rank grass resolution HR 2005-3 for Shawnee County. Programs that they'll try to implement this year at the weed department: develop a web-based public interaction program for weed control. They're actually in the process of doing that now. Promote weed control areas awareness in youth organizations through programs and competitive activities. Promote weed control education through a local media program. Promote education and awareness through multiple public forums and programs within the city. And promote biocontrol agents and holistic weed control practices as an alternative to just chemicals. Facilities, we want to improve and modernize the herbicide sales area, improve efficiency and organization of the outside storage area. And then lastly, under equipment, we want to reestablish the replacement of program of vehicles and spraying units, reestablish the replacement program of rental spraying equipment, and expand the GPS mapping program for rental equipment and implement with the roadside units used by the county employees on public property. John Wellborn is here with us today if you have any questions. As far as the budget for the weed department, it is down slightly based off what we projected or this year's budget, and that is mainly due to John's pending retirement. I don't know the date, so I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag just yet, but we see that overall budget will reduce at that time. So that is it for the weed department. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yes, I have a few.
Well, sure, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. I noticed your personnel part of that budget's way down. Are you not planning on
In the weed?
Yes.
Weed budget? No, actually, I had the same question, and I didn't print that out, but I had the same question Saturday night as I was looking at this at my house, and got a hold of Linda, and the John's position has been changed from classified to unclassified to classified. So you can see in that top line where we've taken all the money out. I have that. I don't know how quickly I could pull it up, but it's the only reduction is the fact that we're planning, when we hire a new weed director, he will not be at the same pay scale because he'll start down at a lower level. He'll be at the same scale, but he'll start at a lower level.
This seems quite a bit lower.
Let's pull it up. Yeah.
You need a hard copy?
Yes, that would be fantastic. So which line are you talking about specifically?
Down at the total on your personnel services, down
Yeah.
there, you have $190,798, and what we had in 19 was 220. I believe that's a 226,842.
At 226,842, and then what we requested was 195,313. Is that what you're seeing?
Well, it said 780 or 98 on mine, but
Yeah,
pretty close.
195,313. So do we know why this?
195.
Would you like to speak to that? Yes.
Linda Kelly, Parks and Rec. The reason for the decrease is that we did not have to give towards their retirement fund. So that was $17,000 of the reduction. As well, they lost 2 employees this year. One was a long-term employee that was on step 20, and that position will be filled with an individual with step 1 as well as the other positions. So 2 of the positions will be new staff at step 1, as well as Mr. Wellborn retiring for 2020. And of course, that decreases the budget line, or the benefit lines and all of that go with that.
I had a question on cardiograph too with this department. What are you charging this department for cardiograph? What is their what is their, how much do you charge off on their budget for cardiograph?
I believe that all the departments involved in cartograph got a straight percentage. I think there are 4 departments, and each department was charged 25% of the cost of cartograph.
And do you know how much that would be in this budget? How much?
That is not in this budget. The weed department capital outlay budget pays for the cartograph costs. So that is not built into their general operating budget.
I can help on that a little bit. By statute, anything that's left in the weeds budget each year can go into an equipment fund. That's what she's referring to as a capital outlay fund, and that is used for any type of equipment or, anyway, we did look at that and decided that cartograph is something that can be paid from that equipment fund.
And how much came out of their budget last year for that?
I think it was $12,000 was their portion.
12,000. And what do they get for that?
They get the software and the support that goes along with the cartograph.
What's their benefit from it?
Well, look at the staff that they have go out and spray the county land to control noxious weed. Right now, they keep little pieces of paper and they mark down the chemicals and et cetera. They come back, they hand the paper to the staff, they turn around and they input, do the calculations. If they had their iPad while they were out spraying, they could map it, input the chemicals, it would automatically calculate the cost for that land, and it would also track, if you got on cartograph, you could see all the land that they sprayed at a given time.
The benefits would be very similar to what the benefits are for every department. So it's better record keeping, it's better cost analysis, it's real-time information as opposed to having to go look through files in a filing cabinet. I believe those are the benefits.
How much time do we spend putting that data in?
Well, it depends. You shouldn't spend much time at all, quite frankly. A lot of it depends on how motivated you are as a staff person to get on board with the program. It is designed specifically for people who are out in the field to use. And so they try to make it as quick and painless as possible, but you've got to be willing to do it. And that's a battle we're fighting, not just in the weed department, but in other areas.
I just don't want to see us get bogged down in the bureaucracy of
Sure.
keeping track of every thumbtack on cardiograph. I'd like to see us, I think it's great for managing a lot of projects, keeping track of things, but I think sometimes you can get bogged down into too much information, and I just wanted to caution everybody not to get, I won't say it, get into the weeds too far.
It's hard not to say it.
It is, but you know what I mean.
I do.
I can see, and I've looked into it a little bit, and I hear from staff and whatnot that spending a lot of time inputting into cardiograph, and then what do you get out of it? Are they getting reports out of it?
Absolutely.
They are?
Yeah. I mean, yes. I mean, it has a very robust reporting function.
And they're getting those now?
I don't know if they're getting them or not. I think that the problem that we're running into, the reports are available to anybody that would like to see them. I mean, it's whether or not they're running them. It's like any other piece of software. I think you're only going to get out of it what you put into it. And so I know that preparing for today, I use Cartograph quite a bit, and I was able to use it from my house.
Is there any way of measuring the savings we get from cardiograph?
I'd have to look into it, but I'd be happy to do that.
Because that's what I'd be interested in. Is it
Sure.
saving us money? We're spending a lot of money. I don't know how much we've spent total on cardiograph in the last couple of years in software, hardware, and everything.
Right.
It's a lot, I know. And I'd like to know that we're getting that much benefit out of it.
Yes, sir. We can look into that.
Okay,
That's all I have.
thank you. Commissioner Cook?
Just overall, I mean, I think that it's important to start the discussion with, Betty has cautioned us that we have less than $1 million that is unencumbered once we account for salaries, health benefits, and that's among all departments across the entire county. You have 36 pages or 36 requests for capital improvements. We're not in a position this year to take out certificates of participation or bond, given our debt load that we're at currently. So Betty may have told you that it's good to dream. I'm going to say not so fast.
No, I understand. I completely understand.
It's good to lay out the plans, but we're just not in a position this year to do $10 million or $20 million worth of plans. And I will tell you that as a commissioner, my priority is on existing buildings that we have and addressing our deferred maintenance before we go into new buildings, trying to maintain what we have before we can take on something new. So if we're going to do something ambitious, you asked for today and got approved the reclassification of your partnership. Partner away, because that's going to be where we're going to be able to take on new, is through partnerships. And so I encourage you to develop those partnerships deep and wide, because otherwise I think our priority should be trying to maintain what we have.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Commissioner Cook, and I think that obviously it goes without saying that that is a priority, to maintain what we have. But I do think that we will try to partner away. I think that's good advice. But I also think we do have to constantly be looking at the future and trying to plan for the future. And you can see from my map, I think there is there are fewer facilities on that side of town. I understand that what I put out was unattainable. I think it was more of a thought, let's put this out on the table so we can start this discussion and prioritize what we think is important. So, but I could not agree with you more on maintaining what we have. It is something that, quite frankly, myself and my staff have been working on nonstop since I got here every day.
And as to a couple of their big projects, a $10 million facility at the family park, I think there needs to be a lot more development of that, refining what that would look like, where we would, how it would work, how it would function, and we just haven't had that discussion in a public forum. So looking at that for a really close time frame, I think is maybe just a little bit premature. It needs maybe a little bit more time to develop and formulate before we are able to roll out something. And then in 2023, you've got the removal of the Oakland pool. That's something that if you're going to remove a pool, there needs to be a lot more discussion, because that's a pretty big key component to a neighborhood. So as we remove amenities, we need to have a lot of discussion about why, what the benefit is, what the cost is, and what we're going to replace it with, if anything. There's
I
a
agree.
plan, there's discussion for a splash pad, but a splash pad, going from a pool to a splash pad will impact the community. And so that's something that should be discussed.
Absolutely.
That's all I have.
I just wanted to say that I think we have to address the tremendous imbalance of Parks and Rec opportunities across our community. The fact is, the Southwest is a Parks and Rec desert. Yeah, we don't have any plans, but we have a park planner with 30 years of experience that's been giving this a lot of thought, and I think we're going to have something exciting to come forward pretty soon. Parks and Rec is probably the most popular asset that we have in Shawnee County, and we've got to invest in it and continue to invest in it over the next 5 years, 10 years. So anyway, good job. You've only been on the job for 15 days. And I'm damn impressed.
Oh, thank you very much.
Betty, did you have anything to
I
add?
did have a couple questions
Yeah.
on CIP requests. On the shop consolidation.
Yes.
You said that you've just started those discussions. You have this earmarked for 2020. Is that too aggressive?
Yes, probably. I think, based on what the meeting that transpired the other day, I feel a little bit more comfortable that we'll be able to move out of the shop at Curtis Street and find at least a temporary home. And I think that would allow us to move that discussion back. Yeah.
Okay. And then the other is the Lake Shawnee Golf clubhouse renovation and the campground renovation.
Yeah.
Those are both in the revolving fund. Has there been any discussion of where this would be paid out of? Is this out of, somehow out of those revolving funds? I know
Yeah.
when we did the cart path at Cypress, they basically borrowed the money from the, from the building maintenance fund, and then they're paying it back. Was there any discussion, has there been any discussion on that?
I'll be honest with you, there has not been much discussion on how we'll fund the Cypress Ridge project. We feel could be part of a family park improvement. If we did something at Family Park, we could either use some of those funds to renovate Cypress Ridge or actually build a new pro shop as part of that project. But for Lake Shawnee, we've had very, very little conversation.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
I guess we should open up to public comment if anyone wants to comment on the budget.
Hi, my name is Mikola Saunders, and I'm a resident of District 1. Thank you for allowing us the time to address the commission today. I'm here as a concerned resident, passionate about the Topeka Metro Bikes program. And I appreciate the conversation that has occurred this morning about investing in what we already have. And I want to just kind of lay out some things just in case. So you may know that Topeka Metro is faced with cutting about $800,000 of its budget because it can't issue bonds to pay for new buses. That replacement cost is coming very quickly. They haven't had a levy increase since 2011, so they're doing a lot of juggling. Part of that juggling would mean the elimination of the state's first bike share program, which I know you spend time in the parks. I know you've seen them at Gage Park, at Lake Shawnee, other parks as well, but those two locations primarily are in the top, at least the top 5, if not higher, in the list of how popular they are in terms of checkout. I want you to know I don't work for Metro. I don't represent Metro in any way. I'm just a concerned Topekan. And what I'm really asking is that you consider, and I hope I'm not the first to bring this up either, but that you consider some level of partnership with Topeka Metro that could allow the bikes to continue to exist as an asset for Parks and Recreation. I know that if you look at the trips taken on these bikes, there are 300 bikes in the county. If you look at the trips taken on the bikes, nearly a third of them stop and start either in a park or on a trail. If you consider all of the trips that in some way use the park or the trail to get to wherever they're going, then that number goes much, much higher, close to 50%. As we look at projects like Deer Creek that make us more bike friendly, more trail access friendly in general, the bikes, I believe, will play a large part in making Topeka and Shawnee County feel like a place that a young person with a young family or not, who doesn't have an interest in owning a car, could really consider our communities as a place where they can actually build the life that they want. There's a lot of conversation nationally around people who, maybe they're a one-car family and they supplement with bike. We're allowing right now our community to have more transportation choice, and it would be a shame for that to go away. So I'm just here to ask you to just consider the bigger picture. I know that right now that funding is not your responsibility, but think about the asset for the parks and recreation facilities that we do have that we would lose if the bike program goes away. And lastly, I'd like to invite you on Wednesday at 11:45 until 12:30. There will be a community stand-up for Topeka Metro bikes at the intersections of 17th and Washburn. And I'd just like to invite you to be there. And if you have any questions, I'm very happy to do what I can.
For McKenna.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. I do have a question. There's from what I understand, there's been a huge deficit of about $180,000 or $90,000. Why do you think that is, and what would you think would be a good idea to address that deficit to keep the program viable?
Sure. So I know that in a lot of communities, the programs similar to Topeka Metro Bikes have started with recreation as a focus and then grown to address transportation. And Topeka really took, I think, a positive risk in growing the network of where you can get a bike beyond the parks right away, so that it really became part of the transportation infrastructure. So what that allows is for people who don't have access to the bus to use the bike as an alternative. It could be that that was done too quickly and we need to make up some ground there. But I think the biggest thing that would be sort of the easiest is right now, the $25 a year that I pay for access to the bike, that's the membership rate right now, is that $25 a year. And for most people, a higher fee is an option. And I think it would be, and I know that there's folks that are probably talking about that already. But when you look at sort of how the funding is structured right now, from what I understand, Capital Federal donates about a third. That's why all the bikes are blue and have the Cap Fed logo on them. That covers about a third of the program. The registration fees, and I've been working really hard to try to get more people, even if you don't use the bus often or the bike often, to pay that fee. That is it's less than 25% of the total budget is covered by those fees. So clearly that gives a lot of room. But that means that there's about $150,000 difference to make up that the bikes might go away to save that level of money. And I know that you're talking about you don't have that much to work with, but I'm hoping that the conversation can continue and everyone can find a way to make this work.
Okay, thank you so
Yep.
much for
Thank you
being
very
here
much.
today.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else for communication?
Thank you, Commissioners. Joseph Ledbetter. I am a advisory board member, but also I'm a citizen, I'm a veteran, I'm a voter, I'm a citizen of both the city and county, and I originally supported very heavily the consolidation of Parks and Rec. I still do. I have many concerns now that I've been on this board for about 3 years, and I've dived deep into a lot of the problems, including a lack of maintenance, or I should say partially a lack of maintenance. One thing I want to bring up before I get into this hearing is I had to file an open records request so that this body, our board, could actually know the date of when this hearing was. We were not provided that. I'm not blaming the new director. He's new. I don't expect him to know everything. But we also only received the CIP budget the next day after our last meeting, which was June 28th, so we got it June 29th. So my concern is I'm going to speak to the operations budget, and I'm going to speak to the first year only of the CIP budget, because the advisory has not been given these numbers until recently. And as per the contract that we have with the city, the advisory council figures very prominently in this contract that was signed and ratified August 2nd by the city and county of 2011, and superbly negotiated by Councilman Archer, speaking about maintenance and listing all the parcels that had to be maintained, including flower beds, playground equipment. It's very inclusive. It's very easy to read. There's nothing vague about it. Maintenance figures prominently in the contract between the city and county in that consolidation. So, on the operations budget, one of the things I talked to the past director about was privatizing some of the things that needed done. Whether he got it from me or other people, he followed through on at least some of them. They are doing more mowing privately. I think they've gotten tremendous cost savings by doing that. One of the things I told him was, I said, you've got to have more plumbers on call. It can't just be one. You've got to have more electricians on call. It can't just be one. You've got to have more HVAC people available when you have emergencies to fix things. I don't know if that's going to be implemented, but I was told there was some of the red tape involved in that came from other organizations. So I think we need to look at those things as a way to speed up the spending of the deferred maintenance money. On the operations budget, it's a 1.5% increase. That is incredibly reasonable considering the size of this department and the impact of this department. I think other than law enforcement and fire, I don't know of, and maybe code enforcement as well, I don't know of a department that has more impact on the citizens of this community, and that one, of course, is yours, than Parks and Rec. Millions of people use it. They want it maintained. I talk to a lot of people that are happy with some of it, unhappy with restrooms that haven't been maintained, fountains, broken bike trails that weren't maintained. Now, some of that's been getting fixed, so I'm going to say that. But it does befuddle me that we had to request so much for deferred maintenance when the ongoing contract should have provided maintenance. One of the things that I came across that I want to discuss is also, and I can provide this to you, in fact, I will. I looked at the reserves for the county over the last several years and how they've grown. May I approach?
Oh, sure.
And I don't expect you to comment on that today, but one of the problems we've had is a tremendous amount of reserves building and building. At the same time, Parks and Rec had about a $1.5 million to $2 million deficit in maintenance every year in the budgets I looked at. And so what we saw was a shrinking of the total combined budgets from 18 million down to 12.5 million. Now it's started to go back up, but that probably demoralized a lot of people in that department. It also made sure that we had some problems with maintenance. So the reason I'm bringing up maintenance is because I'm going to get to the CIP. On the CIP budget.
Excuse me, on the reserves, what was the point you were making?
Oh, the point is, I think our reserves are too high. I think that we need to take some of those reserves and put them back into Parks and Rec. It was asked earlier, where would we come up with money? I said, there's a good place to start.
That's what we just did.
Well, let's do it some more. I'd like to see it at 15%. That's the MPA training I got at KU. It said 15% is adequate.
Have you ever been to a financial planner?
I've been to financial planners. What's that got to do with this?
What's the first thing they tell you? To have 6 to 12 months of expenses in reserve in case you need them.
Okay, so have you ever been,
Currently, we've got 10 weeks of expenses.
okay, have you ever been to an MPA program?
No, I've been to an
Okay, well, I have
MPA
too.
program,
All right.
not an MPA.
All right. So I don't know why we're arguing.
All I'm saying is that we've got 10 weeks of expenses, and commissioners are responsible for the long-term safety and security of our citizens. That's why we've got such a large reserve. But we just took $6 million from reserve and invested it in our community. So I don't know if 15% is the right number. I don't think it is. I know our goal that we passed in resolution is to be at 25% of expense, and that's where we are.
Well, that's the best practices, sir. Thank you. And many counties and many cities operate on 15%. It's considered adequate. I talked to the last commissioner that was up here before, one of the last ones, Mr. Inslee. He said that they used to operate on 11 and 12%, and they did quite fine. I said, that's probably a little skinny. But I am asking for that reserve to be adjusted down to a part that allows Parks and Rec to have maintenance money. If not from bonds, then have it from the reserves. That's my request. It's my own personal request.
Okay, thank you.
Joseph Ledbetter, as a citizen. Thank you. Under this CIP budget, which we were just given, one of my concerns about the maintenance is we gave this body, and I've already handed that out, a $5 million request to just try to get us caught up with deferred maintenance of $14 million, which is uncontroverted. That's of record. I have asked that that be spread across the city. Now, there's enough money in your bonding authority that you could also do a family park in the quadrant that you're complaining about, which is fine, I understand. We also complained about that last year. We asked for Camp Daisy, which was only $600,000 and was 155 acres in that quadrant, which could have been well used. It was well maintained. We went out and reported on it as an advisory. It was excellent. It was an excellent opportunity for this community. But we were told there were no reserves until a couple months later. So we are concerned about that area, sir, very much. Family Park could have a walking trail and probably some amenities and pickle parks for probably about $2 million. It doesn't have to be a recreation center. Recreation centers are usually designed for very poor areas. I'm not saying you can't have one, but have you looked at the opportunity or the idea of putting it maybe over at Westridge, maybe renting some space very reasonably, maybe talking to them instead of ignoring them, maybe going and looking at the Sears building that's for sale? You know, you've got Sky Zone over there. There are other ideas that are available to a community besides just building something from the ground floor up. Now, one of the problems with building from the ground floor up, let's talk about that. $10 million was set aside in this CIP, which was not discussed with the advisory, to put that up. Okay, what is it missing? It's missing a future operations budget. It's missing a design. It's missing engineering cost. We don't know if it's going to be 10 million. We don't know if it's going to be 20 million. We don't know if it could be 30 million. We have no idea because nobody has given us, the advisory or the citizens, any idea what is going to be built or what is proposed. One other thing. I'm not an engineer. We've got one on the advisory. But I will tell you this. Have you looked at the underground utilities out there since it was farmland? We don't know. Does it have adequate storm water? Does it have adequate underground sewer connections to build this proposed building, which we don't know what it is? Again, how much more in parking would we need? We already can't afford to keep the parking lots we've got at Betty Phillips Park or other parks even in good shape. We don't know if that's going to be another $2 or $3 million. I know that the Expo is looking at millions of dollars just to redo their parking lot. So we don't know how much parking lot you're even proposing. If you know that, I'd love to hear it. My concern is that we missed opportunities at Camp Daisy to build in this area, or to buy facilities in this area. We have other alternatives that we could look at if we would just slow down and talk to the public, talk to the people, talk to the advisory. Are there other alternatives to putting up a recreation center at Family Park? Is Family Park a good idea? Probably. But I don't know about the recreation center. That's my concern, sir, or sirs. I don't know how much that's going to cost, and we have no numbers other than a $10 million request. So I think that's less thought out than the Camp Daisy proposal, which was well-maintained, already built, and 155 acres to boot, and had adequate road, et cetera, and utilities. So I'm going to close with my remarks, referring again to our contract that we want to be part of this process as the advisory council, as we are supposed to be, and that's all we're asking for, a place at the table to have the discussion. We have some very good members, some very active members, some very smart members. And it never hurts to turn down advice. I mean, it hurts to turn down advice. It doesn't hurt to take advice, let me put it that way. Whether you accept it or not, at least hear us out. And others are going to say things different than I am, I'm sure. Thank you, sir. Any questions of me?
Questions for Mr. Ledbetter? We've committed $3 million to upgrade and enhance and provide maintenance to our parks. Would you like to outline some of those and where you think we're doing a good job and where we're not?
You're talking about last year's
I'm
request?
talking about the $3 million that are committed now. Can you
From last year.
highlight, where that money's going?
Well, I know that $400,000 went to a road that I don't think was right to charge to Parks and Rec.
Okay.
It's a collector road. It serves a neighborhood next to the park. That probably should not come out of our funds or Parks and Rec funds. I shouldn't say my funds. It's not my funds. But as a taxpayer, it's our funds.
You're talking about East Edge Road?
Correct.
That's park property, though.
Well,
But talk about some of the good projects that have happened with that $3 million, if you would, Joe.
Well, from what I'm aware,
Wait, okay.
now you remember, I'm not running this
But
department.
you're on the advisory committee, and you seem to know a lot. So what am I asking you is, what are the $3 million, the projects that you approve, that you think are doing well for our community?
We were told that we would lobby for that money. Parks and Rec set up their own committees to allocate that money. I think that advisory is always best when we talk to us. We gave you a proposal for the bonds.
But I guess I'm asking you to talk about the play structures, where they're going, the safety surfaces that we're doing, the fencing that we're doing. You should be very aware of all those opportunities that we have for the $3 million.
Well, we should be.
And serving on the advisory.
We should be if we're given the reports. So,
Commissioner Cook, go ahead.
I think, Mr. Ledbetter, what he's asking, Commissioner Archer is asking you very poignantly, you've taken a good 15 minutes of telling us everything we've done wrong. Why don't you tell us what we did right in the last year?
what you did right was allocate some money to deferred maintenance. That is absolutely correct.
In what?
Well, from what I'm told, it's supposed to go to,
What have you seen?
what have I seen is
No.
some trails. I've seen some water fountains fixed. I've seen, I have not seen kitchens remodeled. I don't know about HVAC. And I've only seen a couple roofs over at Ward Mead Park. I think there was some work done with that. I don't know how much the percentage was. I was told they had not gotten into it very well deeply, or very deeply, which I don't know what they meant by that.
Well-
Maybe they spent 200,000 or 300,000, I don't know. But I do know that 400,000 was taken out for a road. And there's a lot more parking lots that need fixed.
Couldn't agree with you more. I just, you come here as a member of the advisory committee
And a citizen.
and an expert on how we should be spending our money, when in fact you don't know how we've spent the $3 million that we've already allocated.
Well, in fact, I think that I am in disagreement with how high your reserves are. And I didn't say I was an expert, but I certainly have training in it.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome, sir.
Anyone else for discussion this morning?
That's a hard act to follow.
Good morning, Jim.
Jim Martin, I'm here, I think, with two hats today. One is advisory board member and vice chair, and then the other is just me. I'm coming today to talk a little bit more about some generalities, because the budget is not just a single document. It's influenced by the CIP, it's influenced by the rec center system. It's influenced by potential future thinking about the bonded indebtedness. It's got a lot of tentacles that have to be addressed by you all. And I think you get to see the end result as results of a lot of work. And at this point, I think the people that are here, the Parks and Rec people, and even some of the Finance Department people, I think we owe you a big thanks for spending the last several months toiling away, working on this stuff, because it is not easy. And generation of the numbers and consideration of them is not an easy thing. I'll put my advisory board hat on first, because I wanted to make in the end, I think you'll see where I'm going with the long term, because Joe spoke very pointedly about certain items of this budget and concern more in the weeds level. 2015, 2016, the advisory board looked very hard at the deferred maintenance, or that problem, and we came up with a magic number of about $1.5 million, $1.6 million, to replace, to restore, refurbishment, the nice 3R thing. And that was to take care of what we have. And we talked about capital improvement project as new projects that the master plan called for that people want and think they need. We asked for at that time that process or that account be established within the Parks and Rec, and it has been. And that's, I think, you asked for very positive elements. I think that's one of the biggest, most positive things that we can point to. It has been funded by cash available with the excess funds. There's not been a long-term sustainable revenue source, and that's is an issue. The other thing that we did as an advisory board, November of 2017, we prepared what we called an action plan that really tried to address our concerns about, number one, the 3R program, making it sustainable, also getting Gage Park initiated and going, and then also looking at long-term funding for the whole department, not just funds available from the general fund or from taxation, that type of thing. We also talked about when the consolidation occurred, the county actually took the recreation side of both entities, wrapped them up, but in the city entity, there was and to a lesser degree in the county entity, the community center system. Well, it's a system within the system, really different than the overall parks and recreation aspect. The community centers provide recreation opportunities, but they're a civic gathering place. They provide many and different services, and the ideas that people would like to do with those centers abound. I mean, you talk about dreaming, there's a lot of things that people would like to do with those centers and everything, but they are within that Parks and Rec budget. And that's a big elephant in that room to begin with, let alone any of the other parks activities. The other thing that I would point out that the 2014 master plan was mentioned. Great basis, and you all have been very, very supportive of that. Part of the problem with the master plan is it did all the good work and the detail and the stats, and then it had a general discussion about how we're going to fund it. And it kind of stopped there, left it up into your laps. And I think that, unfortunately, in hindsight, it should have carried on another notch. But that's what I want to address here in just a minute. But really, that's all I wanted to remind us all about, that the Parks and Rec Advisory Board has been very, very active in a consistent manner of looking at the deferred maintenance or deferred activity, whether you're talking about restoration, rehabilitation, or replacement. And so I think we'll keep being active in that realm. And I think the other realm is that we can go through this scenario every year. And I don't know how old Joe is, but he's going to be here for a long time. So we need to find some solutions about long-term funding. And so I'll talk to those in just a second, but I'm going to put my private hat on now, and I just have some limited comments on the CIP, because this is something new, but it impacts the budget. It impacts your thinking overall as far as how you address the funds. The current budget, and I don't have the latest sheet, but I think it indicated in excess of about $500,000 that was going to be a transfer to the 3R account. And then all the rest of the budget was basically line items. Some of those line items down in the body of the budget, I suspect, I don't know for sure, because I don't know how they designate them, actually probably go to 3R projects. And it would be great if there could be a little more definition within the accounting or the budget process, if some of that budget item, or some of those budget items or those amounts, if they could be identified, if they actually are, actually going toward 3R, because again, replacement, restoration, rehab, that covers a lot of territory. versus brand-new project. That's pretty distinct. The CIP project enlisting, and, again, I appreciate, especially, I mentioned the staff earlier as far as the work they do, but, Tim and Betty have the wonderful opportunity to put it all together and make sense out of it, and then bring it to you in a manner that you can actually work with. One of the issues that with the CIP with Parks and Rec is it's a combination of new things, some identified as 3R projects, and then others kind of wish list in a way. If there could be a little more definition about what projects are really 3R projects, are park renovations part of a 3R? I think if you really talk about it, I think they are in a larger sense, because they are physical facilities that we have to take care of. So they're not something new. I mean, a new something is like the park we're talking about, or like a new swimming pool or the new splash pad. That's a brand-new CIP. That's a desire that the public has expressed. So a little better definition maybe on the capital improvements realm of what's a 3R project, or what's maybe a new capital project. The CIP online is great, but I think it would be nice if we could get some citizen input on that, a simple rating or whatever, to give people an opportunity to express their opinion a little bit, on the items that are shown on there. The one thing that, and realize that I come from the realm of federal grants and state grants and that type of thing, and we never were able to spend any money without prioritization. And we always had to do that with a numerical system. Even though numerical systems are very subjective, they do give an initial idea of what people express as priorities. I think from the standpoint of the CIP system that each department, and this is also, we got to remember here, this deferred maintenance issue that you all are handling is not just Parks and Rec. I mean, this hearing is for Parks and Rec, but you have to deal with deferred maintenance on the whole thing. So how do you prioritize that deferred maintenance within a department? I would like to see if there was a way to, just a simple rating system for internally, that the Parks and Rec staff, they're professionals, you've hired professionals that are schooled and educated and trained in the parks management operation. Give them an opportunity to prioritize these projects instead of just, listing them out. I think you'll find it's a big improvement, and will give you a better product in the end. The other thing that I wanted to address a little bit was part of the issue from the consolidation and from a budgeting standpoint is we've cut staff to achieve efficiencies, which, and with the change in processes, procedures, the cartograph was a good example. Data and staff are now able to do things that they were never able to do before, but that has been with a reduced staff. We're at a point that the cuts in that staff are probably getting into some areas that are causing initiation and completion of project problems. That's been probably one of the most common things that we've heard is, okay, why can't we get it started? Why can't we get it done? In that regard, I would ask or recommend that the board and Parks and Rec consider hiring a staff civil engineer, 30-something with maybe 10 years of experience to be responsible for the initiation, the coordination, and the completion of these projects. I'll give you a good example of what you already do in Public Works. The large projects that Public Works initiates and takes under their wing are mostly successful because they have a trained civil engineer within their staff that is responsible for coordinating, initiating those projects and everything. So I think all these folks that we have on staff on Parks and Rec are busy meeting the needs of the recreation system, and it's tough to get projects going and completed and in a manner that people want. The other thing, how do we fund that new position? Okay, well, I'm going to ask, I want you to add $500,000 to fund that position, but also to fund one of the items I think we're somewhat overlooking. Tim pointed out, and I think did a good job of explaining it, but the ADA assessment and ADA issues, I think are something that's a basic responsibility for the county, for the city, for these facilities, et cetera. It's something that I don't think that we can justify putting off ahead of other things. And so, I'm saying, from my standpoint, I support the budget as it's configured right now, but I would like to see some money added, see that position added, and then that ADA, at least the oversight or the overview initiated, because I think until you do that, we don't know what we've got. And I think I think we can be called into question a lot on those items. I give you the discussions and the experience we've just had finishing the Adventure Cove. We did get that ADA access in there. Very important, even for, that type of thing. The other, and one of the last things I'll visit with you about is the community center system is extremely important to this community overall. If you ask 50 people what their perception and what their desires are for any of these community centers, you'll get 50 different answers, I guarantee you. But so many of them are looking down the road and looking to the future. I think it would be well for us, because that system resides within Parks and Rec, but we have limited ability to pull out the financial on it. Now, I know Linda can do wonders, and she's got a lot of numbers on those centers, et cetera, but I would almost like to see if some consideration could be given to a sub-budget within the Parks and Rec budget for the community centers, so that we can really tell what we've got and what we have to deal with, again, looking down the road, because they're not going to go away. They need to be improved. They need to be considered as a entity, but again, it's within the Parks and Rec budget totally. In that regard, one of the things that we did ask, the advisory board did ask for in November of 17 and then early in 18, was that a community group be formed or some type of review be initiated looking at all the community centers. Those centers have been around a long time. It's just like your house. You need to look at your house and see what's good and what's bad. There's some really good things going on, especially with some of the contracting activities, some of the improvements. I mean, my goodness, I remember going to the Abbott Center way back when. It's totally different now. It's great. But I think there's a lot of people in this town that would, like to see those community centers continue and be improved, which you are doing some physical improvements, but, maybe other improvements, because indeed they serve more than a rec purpose. So, I'd like to see this commission step out and help with or authorize or organize a group to address that. Now, I want to end up with, I guess, the two issues that probably concern me most on from Parks and Rec, and again, it's an overall budgeting standpoint, but I'm looking again down the road here. One is the staff scenario. The staff's sufficient numbers probably, but I think, and maybe Tim's already doing this. He's a pretty energetic guy. He's been going like Banshee. I think the staff needs to be looked at very carefully to see where there are holes or where something needs to be added or tweaked with respect to the type of things we're talking about as far as being able to meet the needs of caring for accelerated and larger scale deferred maintenance and/or some of these new projects. So I think there's an opportunity to, and that's why I go back to the request for the engineer position, to be able to help free up and assist the folks that are already there in making a lot of decisions that need to be made in a sequenced manner, because as you all know, when you first talk about a project, it's months to years before it comes to fruition. You have to have that consistency of coordination. The other thing, I think we did ask about was long-term funding. And immediately when we started long-term funding, everybody covered up their heads and said, oh my God, taxes. That's not necessarily the case. What we asked for was to look at an array of things that might work with the existing Shawnee County system. So I would suggest that if we could, that we're kind of a unique group in a way, a combined consolidated city-county system. There are a few of them in the country, and if I turned around and asked him, he could probably tell me just like that how many, but I won't do that. I would suggest that a good thing for us to do as a community would be to look at those elsewhere that are in the same category as we are. Look at what they do, look at how they do it, see what we can learn, see what we can apply, or see what we can maybe use. Maybe nothing. This system that we have right now may be what we need and what we have to have. I'm thinking that there may be some improvements in a combination versus a totally tax system or a special district. The zoo, city zoo, is taking a step toward a conservancy. I think that's an important thing to keep an eye on. We've talked about conservancies at Gage Park and Lake Shawnee. So I guess in closing, I would really like to, and I hope you don't have any bricks in hand, because I want to challenge you a little bit, I guess, as individual commissioners and as a commission as a whole. We go through this cycle year after year of this budget cycle over and over and over. And yet we have not taken some steps to look at long-term funding to ensure that the people that follow you and us are going to enjoy this same situation. Now, maybe I'm sure there's things that I'm not aware of, and I'll plead guilty to that. But I would challenge you all to let's look at these other locations. Let's look at the community centers to understand what our system really is. And then the budget discussions that we've had and we're having right now, I think can take a lot of different, in a better form. So I would stop and hopefully answer any questions you might have.
I do have a quick question, and your comments are thoughtful, and I think they're thought-provoking and respected. But you mentioned the website and the CIP. What would you change? I mean, we're new at this. We're just implementing
Right.
a formal CIP program, we're just putting it on the website.
Well,
How would you change it to
I
improve
guess
it?
I'm basing my comment there, number one, on you as a commission and as individuals all promote the citizen input a great deal, which is great. I mean, which is appropriate and proper. When we ran the surveys for Venture Cove and stuff out in early 2017, we started in the schools and did it paper-wise. Then we put it online. And we gave them a list and some pictures and said, what do you think? You know, pick the ones you like the most, or, you know, give us a number rating. And in reality, we got a lot of information out of that. You get across the board, you get a little bit of everything. And it depends on how you set it up. You have to be careful because, I mean, you can get nothing out of it also. But I think just seeing a list, again, I think as you appropriately indicated, informs people. But there's a lot of people out there that don't have the time, or they're scared to death to come down and tell you about it.
Okay.
It might be a simple way, and not to complicate your life any, but the capital improvements programs that I have worked with, the prioritization of projects is extremely important because it shows study and depth and purpose. But even prioritization, or if you go and get an online indication, again, they're all subjective, but it's better information than taking that first guess. And so, you know, I'd say there's some people that could work with you to come up with a way, I think, to provide some input on that. But I think really, and most of what I'm talking about really is probably geared to the next year and the year after. I mean, really, in the sense, other than hiring the civil engineer.
Does anyone have any other comments or questions for Jim?
No, I don't.
Thank you for all your work you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would just say
Oh,
one
Betty.
thing. Our current, the software that we have for this currently does have a prioritization. That is not on their public
Oh, no.
website. It is available to the commissioners.
What, is
where
it,
the-
is it
where the
available to the
department-
departments?
Yes.
Okay.
The departments set those priorities.
Okay, that's what I was after, was
Yeah.
for the departments to set the priority, but then to indicate what that priority is
Yeah,
directly. So.
and their piece that you can see on the website does not include that. But I appreciate your input, because that's something we could ask them to include, you know, if we know it. So I appreciate
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Thanks again, Jim.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's going to be afternoon here soon, so I'll make it quick. My name is Terry Roberts, and I am the chairperson of the advisory committee. Jim is the vice chair currently, and I also serve on the Heartland Healthy Neighborhood Steering Committee as well. For our community, that's what I do in terms of my volunteer. The first thing I want to say is that I have a little more of a list you asked for, so let me just thank you all, because yes, we all came and pleaded for the $3 million. So the pump, which is not in yet, but the pump and the cove, the new toys in the cove, have been part of that. The trails improvement, and I want to say that I go to some of the momentum meetings and some other meetings in the community with nurses and HNHN, and the one thing that, when I introduce myself, they say, the trails are great. What you've done at Gage Park, through the city, that is the one thing. So when that young lady came in today about the bike program, I'm like, this is what I do here, that they think the trails are wonderful. And even though we have a few pieces of cement that still need to be fixed, that they are very appreciative of that. I don't know if I'm just with people that are bike enthusiasts or not, but I do hear that a lot. So that's been good. We also, we did have some water fountain issues, so we talked to the staff about, let's get the water fountains picked. We had bathrooms at Shawnee Lake for the girls' programs, Ripley, Phillips, and then the new turf that needs to be done at Bettis on the soccer fields and on the baseball fields, that came out of the 3 million. And as I think Joe said, about 400,000, I don't know. I thought I read it was 421,000 for the road improvement out on the east edge or whatever. But yeah, that came out of the 3 million as well. So just wanted to provide that. That's from my notes, what I remember. I did go back and confirm with staff. A couple things. I want to say that I'm not speaking on behalf of the advisory committee. I'm coming as a citizen, but I'm a pretty informed citizen because I chair the committee and I try to read everything they have. In fact, I brought with me the 72-page Parks and Rec Strategic Action Plan, which I have read, and I will be quoting one part of it today. And I try to stay abreast. I was also the chair. I really was, I would say I was the head cheerleader for the CAPRA. Randy Luby really motivated the staff. I would just go to the meetings and be a cheerleader for all the staff to get through the CAPRA accreditation. It's not easy, it's not fun, it's not pleasant, but it's an excellent stamp of approval for this community to have the CAPRA accreditation. So I am familiar with that. And I want to address something on the CIP relative to that, one of our deficiencies. But before I do, I have two more things I want to say. First off, the operating budget, I support it, okay? I would like to see the capacity of personnel resources increased. I'm kind of with Jim. I think we're at the bottom that we can have. We have limited capacity to move our projects forward, to identify new projects, because everybody's working really hard and doing what they need to get done. So we have limited capacity to identify new and different things and get them done timely and appropriately. That's just my perception, okay? And I was thinking about John Knight's proposal. I went back and looked at it, and he put it up last year, that we were at 37% of what we call, of our budget was revenue generated, okay? And I know Betty's report today is we're a little behind on that. Okay, well, that is of concern. Yeah, we need to find out what that's about. But 37% versus 24% was the national average. So while I'm not a numbers girl, I'm a data girl. I love to look at data, and what it says to me is I'm pondering this on my trips in June. I'm like, you know what? One of the reasons we're at 37% is because our budget is so skimpy that we bring in 37% as opposed to the national average of 24%. And I just put that out there, okay? I don't know, but I'm thinking, why? Last year when he said it, I'm going, oh, well, that's really good that bring in 37%. Well, maybe because bring in 37% because we're not funded the way we should be funded, okay? I also wanted to comment on something that Joe mentioned about the advisory committee. We have now shared the contract from the city, which is done in 12, with the county, with the advisory committee, with the paragraph, the section that talks about it, what our role is more specifically, and we will be revisiting that again at our July meeting. What else that we need to do? I've actually gone out and looked at other advisory committees that are probably a little more assertive or aggressive than we are. Okay? What do their reports look like to the county commission? So I'll be sharing those with them as well. May even bring some of those to you as well. But we will be looking at that. Okay. Now, because today, I know, and the 25th, I understand you're going to be approving these CIP budgets, I just want to address the CIP line items, okay, which were given to us the day after our meeting. So I've had a chance to review them, and I even went and met with Randy and Tim and Jeremy. So I've already met with them and told them about what my opinion was related to this, having been in the seat that I've been in. So let me just talk about the accessible field resurfacing. Currently, the only completely accessible field for ADA, for children and others, is, if you've been out there to look at it, it's a little unsafe, okay? The asphalt is corrupted and it needs to be repaired. So I know it's in here for funding for 3R, but yeah, I really think it's a priority from a purely safety perspective. Remember, I'm a nurse by background, and when we bring to you our things that have to be done, I always think we got to do the safety ones first. I mean, that should be our first priority, is safety for the public. What is a safety mechanism? Then the others about improvement and what they look like and aesthetics and all of that. The second thing, the ADA transition plan, we have had this has come up at our advisory committee numerous times, okay? We don't believe we are in compliance with ADA. We think there needs to be a better look at it by some experts to determine how we can get into compliance with ADA. Now, it's very impressive what happened in the past 2 weeks with them putting in the kayak place and the Heroes Project, and they're bringing people from the VA. Excellent. That is excellent, okay? However, that probably was grant funded and not funded from us. But we do believe that we might have some ADA issues, and they need to be examined, and we need to know what they are and whether or not, how fixable they are and how expensive they would be to fix. The Deer Creek Trail Project, which is, as you know, the 20% match, totally support that. Very, very appropriate. It's part of a larger project that's going on, and we only have to commit $496,000 to that. I'm going to skip over the family park improvements. Want to go to the floating playground? That's our final phase, which I would, Jim's back there championing, drum rolling it, because that is our final phase to the Adventure Cove. Now, I did want to say, when he said he did he did the survey, he actually designed the survey. It was forced choice. It was forced choice to children, right? So he took pictures of things that they could include at the Adventure Cove. He really did. And that's what they picked. And then he tallied all of it and he presented it to the advisory committee. And that's how we got to where we are today, which is the water toys and then the floating playground. So it is something that the advisory committee has looked at, we've supported, and again, we got good feedback from Jim's survey when he did it with the community. He started with the children, then he went to the middle school children, then he went to adults. So, okay, that's where we're at on that. The next item that I want to talk about is, of course, the milfoil treatment is, we got to do that. It's a safety issue. If we're going to have people in the water, they got to be safe. So we got to do that milfoil treatment so that they're safe. The $400,000 for the park maintenance equipment replacement. We have, and he mentioned today, it's 90 pieces in here, but maybe they've done a reanalysis of that, and it's 77 to 80 pieces of equipment that need to be replaced. So, we haven't had adequate funds to do that. So that's another priority that we really need to give serious consideration to. Now, I will say, I think the carousel's still down. They're still working on trying to get whatever it is. It's an antiquated piece of equipment. It's lovely. It was redone, put in there, but it's got to be running to be functional. So it's been closed. It was closed over the 4th of Day holiday. So hopefully when the gear shop part is either having to be made or shipped or purchased, whatever, once it gets here, that the mechanics will be able to get it in like they were able to quickly put the hose on and get the train running again. So those are our things that our community love, and they, want to take their kids to and take pictures, and they're here with their family. So it is very important that we maintain them and keep them running. The park renovations, 5 to 8 parks, we have not been able to do that. They've tried, but they haven't had the money to do it, okay? So I'm just going to tell you that I think 1.4 million is like, I think it needs to be 2.8 million. I think we need to be doing 16 parks. Tim sat up here and said, we'll try to do as many as we can, but they got to have the resources to do it. And we have the ones we've done, the McKinley Park, and I was at that opening. That day when we had the ribbon cutting, and Teresa was there, and really thanked the community and there were all the other people, citizens who'd helped with the NIA getting the money over the years to do that. They were very appreciative, and it is a lovely park. The sign's great. It's lovely. It's got safe equipment. That's another positive for me, but I do think that we need to do that on a regular basis, and the department has just not been able to do that because they have had inadequate funding. The restroom renovations I want to talk about a little bit because I've done some outreach. I met with the disc golf people, and then the disc golf people came and talked to the last advisory committee meeting. One of the things they brought up to me is there's no bathrooms out here at Shunga in the evening. We got to go to the bathroom. We have to go up to, something, a Mexican restaurant or something else. I'm like, okay, it's not the first time I heard that, and I know Crossover's in here as well. We do need some bathrooms on those trails. If people are going to be on the trails with their families, they're going to need to use the bathroom, okay? So we need to look at that in the future, and I know they have it on here, the 3R funding. The next item is the roof repair replacement. Okay, I did a little bit of research. Now, cardiograph, bring up the issue about Commissioner Rippon about cardiograph. I asked for the cardiograph on roof replacements on all of the facilities, that is the 151 facilities, okay? So I just did the community health centers, the community centers, and the oldest community center is Garfield, 1957. Now, they only have the data that they have. So I don't know how old that roof is or when it was last fixed up, but they say 1957 is when it is listed in here. Nothing since 2012 has been done to that roof. Something might have been done when it was in the city of Topeka, but it's not, but it's 62 years old. The second oldest is Crestview, 1963, it's 56 years old. The third one is Rice, it's 52 years old, 1967. The fourth one, Velma Parish, which was out at Forbes Field, that was kind of probably given to us when the base closed. That was in 75, the base closed. I think they announced it in 72 or 73. Hey, we're closing, closing down Forbes Field. That's 44 years old. And then Hillcrest is 42 years old since 1977, and then the Oakland is 41 years old. And we now know that we've got a problem at Oakland that you heard today, $46,000. We've been waiting on, what is that going to be? $75,000 is not really a good sum for the repairs of these roofs. I just read you the ages of what we know of, the buildings, not the roofs, but primarily. We're going to need more than $75,000 to repair roofs. We're just kind of at that stage where roofs are going to need replacing on some of the 151 structures that the agency is responsible for. So, and the shop consolidation, which Tim talked about, is, yeah, we got, and I've been approached about the riverfront development, and we got to you have to get your shop out of there so we can start working on that. Okay, that is a priority. So I kind of support Tim in finding another alternative to move that off Curtis so that they can get started on the riverfront, okay? And so when I do go to some of these meetings and they find out I'm on the advisory committee, that is the one thing they do bring up about getting that shop moved. So I concur with Tim that the shop consolidation, when he answered Betty's question, do we need the 2.5 now? Probably not. Let's find out if we can move the Curtis shop, and then let's do more of an exhaustive review. Okay. Last but not least, I want to talk to you about the family park improvement for $10 million. Okay? When I went back and looked at the master plan about that, first off, I concur with Commissioner Cook. Maybe a little premature, maybe unnecessary. Certainly premature, because I think they need to develop a business and feasibility study to support the multi-generational center as part of the front end of the project. That has not been done. Okay, so I call them needs assessment. They use a different term here, feasibility study, but I really think it's a needs assessment in that area. Now, I will tell you that I did the MapQuest from 21st and Urish, where we're planning all this, and Crestview, it's only 3.4 miles, less than 10 minutes. It takes 6 minutes to get there, okay? So in the scheme of things, yes, it is true. It does look stark when he puts it up there on the quadrants, okay, in terms of service, or as a community center. But it is not that far to Crestview, okay? And then I went ahead and looked at how long it would take to get over to Velma, which is not in that but fairly, it's less than 10 minutes to get from 21st and Urish to, if they were having a project there, okay? So just putting that out there for programmatic purposes, that it's not really all that far in our small community to get to 2 of our community centers from that place, okay? Now, not saying that you don't need, I did call out there and try to get information about how old that Cypress Ridge building was. I think it's an antique, okay, it's antiquated, does need to be replaced. I can surely see that, okay? But I also think that you need a plan. You need a full-blown plan to what you're looking at, what feasibility is, what is it going to cost. Joe brought up somebody brought up some issues about underground stuff and all of that. We need to look at that. That's very important in terms of whether or not you're going to move forward. And last but not least, and I cannot leave without mentioning, because as a community person, I was not the chairperson of the advisory committee at this time, but I did have several meetings at the library with the Girl Scout representatives here in the area and the community, and tried to let them know that we were trying to bring this forward as the advisory committee. I cannot leave without mentioning the lost opportunity in late 2017 and 2018 in failing to acquire the 186, I think they used a different acreage, but it's 186, Camp Daisy Hyman community. The community activists that approached us, they wanted us to give serious consideration to purchasing Camp Daisy Hyman. The main pushback that we got was that there was no money to purchase Camp Daisy Hyman. This would have been in the 4th quadrant, or the 3rd quadrant, and meet the master plan requirement, and could essentially exceed programmatic activities, because they had a horse barn, they had a lake. I mean, they had a lot of other things that if you build a community center at 21st and Urish, you may not have, and you only have 60 acres. So I'm just saying that I felt like I needed to put that on there because it was a lost opportunity, and we still continue to get people that bring that up to us, okay? So, I'll answer any questions you have. You're probably hungry. My stomach's growling.
Oh, I'm fine.
Okay, good.
Camp Daisy Heineman, from what I recall of discussion, just didn't make business sense. It was very, very isolated and rural. And there was never a plan, I think, that made sense for Parks and Rec to do that. I just don't recall that being an opportunity that we wanted to pursue.
Well, I will say it was discouraged. There's no doubt about it. But we continued to go look at it. We continued to look at other county Parks and Rec.
Didn't it eventually sell?
It did.
Oh, okay.
It's called, I think, called the Hope Ranch, and it's for equestrian, for developmentally disabled and others, and I don't know how that's going. I do know that they also agreed that they would be willing to lease out or rent to the Girl Scouts in this area, you know, like Trails End or Sleepy Hollow, the places that were used originally for camping. I don't know if that's come to fruition, but I do know that that agreed that they would do that. So, which is positive in many ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you on Family Park. It does need to be thought out. It does need to be planned. And from what I understand, there is a park planner with 30 years of experience that's considering that right now, and who's
Probably not paid to do that, but okay, yeah. Not paid to do that, but okay.
right, whose constituents
His community
would
service.
certainly appreciate the effort. So, thank you so much. Commissioner?
First off, now you are going to have budget hearings for the public on August 1st, correct?
That is correct, 5
Okay,
o'clock.
so we have some other people who cannot be here today that we are going to ask to come speak to you then.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Commissioner,
Thank you. Yes, Debbie?
I would also like to just correct a
Sure.
comment that you made on a date. The CIP program will be considered on the 22nd.
Oh, 22nd.
And the 29th.
Okay,
There
all
will
right.
not be a meeting on the 25th.
Okay, oh, I saw that canceled, and I thought, well, okay, thank you for
That's
doing
why I
that.
wanted
So,
to
yeah,
correct
maybe we should
that.
put that to the media.
So
Yeah,
anyone that's listening.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Appreciate your service. Next.
I'm Carol Marple. I'm a taxpayer. I was going to keep my comments short, but then I've made a few notes, so I've got a couple more comments. First of all, I would like to thank John Wellborn. He is going to be an extremely tough act to follow. And I think that for all the rural people, we need to keep in mind how important the noxious weed department is to us. If you look, the list of noxious weeds are growing. They're talking about even not allowing us to sell hay that might contain the Old World blue stem. And as a farmer, rancher, we can work really hard to control it in the land we own, but if it's not controlled on roadsides and public land, we might as well not bother. And if I had one wish, I would wish that the noxious weed department would again become a standalone department, which is what I think it needs to be. But I do want to say John Wellborn will be a hard act to follow. Next, I would like to reply to Commissioner Artzer. I would like him to thank him for realizing that the southwest part of the county is a public Parks and Rec desert. But then I would also like to say there's a lot of people that live in the rural area. Camp Daisy is a thorn in a lot of people's sides. I don't think that it got a fair hearing. I don't think the public was listened to. $600,000 to pay for an operating, well-maintained park was very little compared to a $10 million proposed park. I would also like to say that the southwest part of the county consists down to 109th Street over to Carlson Road, not just 21st and Urish. Now I'd like to make the comments that I had written for the meeting. I think a lot of the decision makers have become disengaged with the people who live in our community. I'm talking Shawnee County and the city of Topeka. Look at the facts. Our population has declined. More than 1 out of every 3 workers live outside of our county. The median age in our county is 38 to 39 years old. The median income is $52,088. Please listen to this one. If you take nothing away from what I've said, Shawnee County collects very high taxes, and it is among the highest 25% of counties in the United States. The United States, folks. We're on that list. Out of 105 counties in Shawnee County ranks number 8. We need to make our county and our community a desirable place to live. We need to repair, replace, and update the current facilities before we start building more facilities. Our Expo Center is a prime example of what happens when we do not follow through with regular maintenance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe last but not least, Clark Trammell. How are you gentlemen this morning? It's been a long discussion. It's been an engaging discussion. It's been a great discussion. People back here that have made presentations to you all are intelligent people. I know you recognize that have come to enter into a dialogue of how they feel about the budget, the CIP, and the issues therefore. I'm not just here as Clark Trammell citizen, but I also represent a lot of people that aren't in this room, just feel like they're here, that have talked to me and talked to the others whose positions I support wholeheartedly relative to the budget and to the CIP, that are concerned about how this budget is going and the work in Parks and Rec. I think it's acknowledged that you all are overseeing major assets of quality of life and quality of place impact in the city of Topeka, the community where most of us live and thrive, hopefully, within that community. So what you do with your money in Park and Rec and how you spend it and how the new leadership administers it is extremely important to the citizens, the candidates for office, and those that represent us being you. I'm very encouraged by the gentleman I heard speak originally, the new Parks and Rec director. I like his energy. I like the way he carries himself. I'm excited to see what he can do for us. I think we have a good staff, but you all have a major project here and several hurdles that I think you need to overcome. So I want to add my voice to those that you've heard from the perspective I presented. I want to tell Commissioner Cook, I support the position you took on the $10 million. There are a lot of people that also support that. I think you need to step back, do a business plan, think it through, and be more judicious in that. Because one of the words that I wrote down during all these presentations consistently that came through was deferred maintenance. Deferred maintenance, deferred maintenance, deferred maintenance. There's a lot of deferred maintenance. $1.4 million isn't going to fix it. We need to fix the platform we currently have before we decide to expand out further and do other things with our dollars, the limited dollars that we have in our budget. So deferred maintenance is a key. There's a lot of it. The parks in the District 6 that I'm running for office for have necessary and have needs. Joe Ledbetter also presented, as did Terry, the parks that they've gone through in the community. I go over to Gage Park every day. There's deferred maintenance in that park. So it's everywhere. I think you all are aware of that, and I don't need to drive that nail any further. I don't know if Forest Park, and I would ask you this question, is Forest Park under your purview? Then I'll leave that alone. Beyond that, I would say this has been a long meeting. You all know where the public sits. I hope you take what's being given to you as constructive criticism or comments, not just as people up here to listen to themselves present something. We find it important. We find what you do important. We need help. Let's do it as a community for the right reason, for the community as a whole, not for specific interests. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. It's time for lunch. We do have another budget hearing at 1 o'clock, so stay tuned. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you,
We're adjourned
Commissioners.
until 1.
Because he's doing great. I saw all the budget, I mean, all the CIP requests, and then I saw all the budget hearings.
Well, the way the resolution for the program read, it just says that it'll be decided by the end of the month. So, I'm trying to.
That agenda will be on the agenda?
Yes,
27th
yes,
or the
yes.
29th?
It'll be on the agenda for the 22nd, and then if we need to, we'll address it again on the 29th, just depending on how the discussion goes and what time is needed.